Mitzvah hanu lasok b'divrei Torah. Lasok b'divrei Torah, lasok b'divrei Torah. Lasok b'divrei Torah, lasok b'divrei Torah. Okay, pull up some chairs. Non-smoking. Is there a block? Is there what? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech shehakol nihiyeh v'nivro. From whom all things are created.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
It's the fallback on everything, but it is, yes, it is. Whenever you'll see my cigar, you'll hear me see my lips move. That's actually what I'm saying.
Really?
Yeah. See, now I need it.
So now you need to. Is it right?
I need it.
Okay, so death, dying, and the afterlife. How many of you have died and been reborn because you believe in reincarnation? Welcome back.
Well, I got it. I guess I'm here. Good being here. I believe I was my eyes got my previous life. Yeah, we have to be.
So, this is one of those topics that rabbis avoid talking about because no one wants to. Many rabbis don't want to have to answer questions that they don't want to have to answer. So we're going to study this and talk a little bit about the Jewish take on death, dying, and what comes afterwards. And there are a lot of theories on it, but we're going to study a little bit. So, who wants to start reading in the first page these quotes? Someone loudly.
Before I formed you in the belly, I knew you, and before you came forth out of the womb, I sanctified you.
Okay, this is the book of Jeremiah. God is talking to Jeremiah, and he says to him that I knew you before you were born. The implication, therefore, is that the soul exists before physical birth. If that is true, it implies that the soul exists after physical death. Right? If he knew him before he was born, why would he know him after death? So please go on. 5
things are a 60th part of something else, namely fire, honey, Sabbath, sleep, and a dream. Fire is 1/60th part Gehenna.
Gehenna is the judgment place, not hell, but similar. Go ahead.
Honey is 1/16th part of manna. Sabbath is 1/16th part of the world to come. Sleep is 1/16th part of death. A dream, 1/16th part of prophecy.
So this does not mean that if you also take when you go to visit someone who's sick, you take away 1/60th of their sickness when you do it. That does not mean if you go 60 times they're healed. It means each time you're taking 1/60th out. Okay, please go on.
My favorite saying, Rab, was the future world is not like this world. In the future world, there is no eating, nor drinking, nor propagation, nor business, nor jealousy, nor hatred, nor competition, but the righteous sit with their crowns on their heads, feasting on the brightness of the divine presence. As it says, and they behold God, and did eat and drink.
And you know what the sages say the crown on their heads is? Torah study. Because what you take and we study here follows us after this life. Please continue.
Be seated, exalted guests. Be seated, holy guests. Be seated guests of faithfulness. Be seated in the shade of holy, blessed is he. I invite to my meal the exalted guests, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Aaron, Joseph, and David. May it please you, Abraham, my exalted guest, that all the other guests dwell here with me and with you, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Aaron, Joseph, and David. Welcome, Abraham. Welcome, Sarah. You parented faith together in Haran and carried your beliefs wherever you traveled. May we, like you, be models of faithfulness and fortitude in all that we do.
Okay, this is called to this is the prayer that we say each night of Sukkot. Right? We invite the dead into our sukkah. It's also a great time to sleep in the sukkah and then to have dreams of your deceased relatives. I'm not going to talk about the numbers that had that. Again, this is from the Art Scroll Siddur, the Orthodox Siddur, and so the idea is that these souls exist post-physical death. Make sense? Let's just keep that as an overall arch. So there are a couple of processes, 7 processes that we deal with when someone has died. The first is called tahara. Tahara is a ritual cleansing of the body. It's done by a group called Chevra Kadisha. Now, I want to just put a asterisk. Chevra Kadisha means holy friends. And every town, every Jewish community has a Chevra Kadisha, people who are trained to wash a dead body, to cleanse it, and to say certain prayers over it while they are. Right? A number of years ago, here in Los Angeles, a company bought a couple of cemeteries and a mortuary, and they decided to take the name of their corporation is Chevra Kadisha. So that when anyone who really doesn't know is saying, well, I need to find Chevra Kadisha, I remember my grandmother told me that. They go on, and who they find? They find these guys in Downey. I miss you. So this is Tahara. Tahara is done again by these holy friends. They're anonymous, don't know who they are, and it's a special cleansing. They wash in every orifice, under the nails, everywhere they can. Okay? Come on, pull up some chairs. We got plenty of chairs. All right. Next process, a shomer. Shomer means guardian. A shomer is someone who stays with the body from the moment of death, from the moment it gets to the mortuary, until burial. Okay? Until they're relieved by the rabbi for the funeral. Shomer, which means guardian, is he sits there and he recites psalms and certain other prayers during this process, nonstop. Now, why do we do that? Well, first of all rituals around death and dying in Judaism are both for the deceased, but they're also for the living. And out of the two priorities, the living is more important. Okay? So, why do we do this? First of all, for a lot of us, it gives us comfort to know that our loved one is not alone. Right? That's number one. Number two, as we're going to learn, there are discussions about when does the soul really leave the body. And there's the whole concept that whether it's for a day, whether it's until burial, whether it's for the first month, whether it's for the first year, the soul's bouncing back and forth between this world and the next. And when it comes back to this world, it goes to the body. And so they don't feel alone and scared. So that's where the shomer comes from. Shiva. Shiva and Shloshim are tangential. Shiva means 7. Shloshim means 30. Shiva is the first 7 days. During these 7 days, you stay at home. You have services twice a day at your home. People bring you food, and you have services. And then Shloshim is the next 23 days. We're making a total of 30. During those 23 days, you leave the house, but you still go to services twice a day. Typically, you study Talmud during this whole time. Typically, Pirkei Avot, ethics of our fathers, and you do it out of the house. Why do we do it? Again, all Jewish ritual has a double purpose. Nowhere do we see it more clearly than in Shiva and Shloshim. The spiritual reason is because we believe that nothing gives a parent more joy than when the child, grown child, doesn't matter how old, says, hey, Mom, look what I did in your honor. I learned this Torah portion. I did learn this text. I learned this prayer. The psycho-emotional reason has to do with, let's say, that Mr. Poloni had lunch with his mother every Wednesday. Well, the Wednesday after the funeral will be the first time he doesn't, so it marks the time in his consciousness. Similarly, let's say that he talked to his mom on the first day of every month about finances. The first of that next month is the first time he won't, so it marks the time in our consciousness. So it's both for us and it's for the deceased. That's both Shiva and Shloshim. We have this prayer called El Mali Rachamim. It is a beautiful, beautiful prayer. Okay, it's this beautiful prayer. And what it really translates to is it's specifically speaking to the Shekhinah, the female aspect of God. And it's asking that the Shekhinah give the departed a hug. Welcome him into the other world, into the next world, and give him a hug and a hold. Kaddish, we start saying it at burial, and then we continue for the first year, and then on 4 other times throughout every other year after that, on different holidays and on the art site. Kaddish is an interesting prayer. It's probably the most misunderstood prayer in all of Judaism. Nowhere does Kaddish talk about study, but we say it when we study. Nowhere does Kaddish talk about prayer, but we say it at parts of the prayer service. Nowhere does it talk about death. We say it at funerals and in remembrance. Kaddish is to understand Kaddish, it says so much. Is God finite or infinite? Infinite, right? So if God is infinite, that means God is also always growing, doesn't it? By definition. Because if it stopped growing, God would be finite, right? The Kaddish is in a form of Aramaic. It's not in Hebrew. A form of Aramaic that is a conjugation called binyan hitpa'el. So you have the Kaddish that goes yit roman v'yit nasev yit hadar yit halev yit halal yit, right? That's a self-reflexive form of grammar. So the word gadol means big or large. Yit gadal means he or it made itself bigger. Kadosh means holy. Yit kadash means he or it made itself holier. Yit halal means praise. Yit halal, he or it made itself more praised. So it's self-reflexive. We say it after we study because we believe the study affects God, that it makes God bigger. We say it during prayer service for the same reason, and we say it when someone's died as a recognition that they made God more godly. It's a commitment to take the best of their qualities and walk them in the world. So Kaddish is, that's what Kaddish prayer is. And then the other process is Yizkor. Yizkor literally means he or it will remember. And it's, again, a double entendre. He being God will remember our loved ones. He being us will remember our loved ones. And so we say Yizkor at specific festivals and at, you can say it anytime you want, but specific festivals, and especially the year anniversaries. Yes.
Kaddish.
Speak loudly. Speak loudly.
For Kaddish, it's also it's at the end of each portion of the
section.
church. So each section marks the end. So at the end of your life, it's also marking.
So we're going to follow that even because we're going to take that a step deeper since you brought it up, and you know I'm so hesitant to follow a tangent. There are certain sections of the prayer service, right? In the morning service, there's the morning blessings. There's the Sukkah December, the praising of God. There's the Shema and its blessings. There's the Amidah, and then 3 days a week there's a Torah service. And in between each section is Kaddish. It's more than just an end, it's a transition prayer. Transitions from this section of the prayer service to this section, from this section to this section, okay?
And meaning that there's a stop.
There's a stop and a new beginning.
Right,
there's a new piece. So this is the transition from this world to the next. Yizkor is a time to remember. Now we light a Yizkor candle. You live in California. So although it is not a Torah law, it is a personal law. Put your Yizkor candles in a bowl of water in your sink because we live in an earthquake country. Okay? Always a good idea. But is there a prayer that you need to say when you say Yizkor? What do you think? There's none. You don't need to say any prayer. You can say whatever you want, but you don't need to. And it's the only time in Judaism that we light one candle. On Shabbat, we light 2. On Havdalah, there's 3 or more wicks. On Hanukkah, we light as many as 9. The only time is for Yizkor candles. And the reason is because it says in the book of Proverbs, the book of Mishlei, it says that the soul of the human being is the candle flame of God. And we believe that the deceased is now at one with God. So we don't need to say the prayer, but you always can. Okay, you're not. By the way, so depending on your level of observance or understanding, you're told, we can't say Kaddish if you don't have a minyan. How many of you have heard that? And some say a minyan of 10 men. Okay? So first of all, the reason that you don't say it without a minyan is because we believe the prayer is so powerful. This is the Gemara. The prayer is so powerful that your soul could leave your body and not come back. So we need to anchor it with the community. So if you're by yourself, how many of you have ever gone to visit a loved one's grave? Okay. You're by yourself, or you're with 1 or 2 friends, right? Can you say Kaddish? How many say no? How many say yes?
You can do whatever you want.
The answer is yes. Because there are 10 Jewish male souls at every cemetery. Make sense? It's the law is to serve the people. So that's, you actually can say Kaddish. You don't need a minyan in a cemetery to say Kaddish. Okay? So those are the 7 practices around this process. Let's turn the page and do some more studying. Who would like to read the next page? Go. Where said I would? Go.
Okay. You shall therefore keep my statutes.
Loudly.
You shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments, which if a man does, he shall live in them. I am the Lord.
Okay, so we are to keep the laws, to live in the laws, not to die by them. Are you allowed to eat shrimp? No. If eating shrimp will save your life, are you obligated to eat shrimp? Yes. Because there's nothing else. Let's say that your doctor prescribes shark fin soup. Shark's not kosher. You're supposed to eat it? Yes. It's all about living. Please continue.
There shall not be found among you anyone who makes his son or his daughter pass through the fire, or who use divination, or a soothsayer, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a medium, or a wizard, or a necromancer.
Okay. So first of all, if the law says you can't do something, that means that it's possible to do it, right? We're not going to say, Fiona, you're not allowed to float 6 inches above the ground and cause the winds to blow, unless that's a possibility that someone could do that. When it talks about a medium speaking with the dead, when it talks about a necromancer raising the dead, it's saying this because it's something that can be done. And our tradition is clear about that, and it's forbidden. Please continue.
For all that do these things are an abomination to the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord your God drives them out from before you.
Yes. That's not what it says, sir. That's not what the text says. It does not say thou shalt not kill. It says do not murder. It does not say do not kill. It doesn't say. That's just not what the Hebrew says. I'm sorry. So you understand. So you understand. Hold on. So you, sir. So I'm going to try this again, sir. So one of the issues, and does anyone know what the primary law of the Israeli Defense Force is? The law of the black flag. If you see a black flag in front of your eyes because your commander has commanded you to do something, sir, I'm not asking for your agreement or disagreement. Sir, please stop. Please, sir, I'm going to ask you again, sir. You've done this before. I'm going to ask you to please stop. Sir, Orlando, go get the security. Just Orlando, go deal with it. So, the IDF has a basic law called the black flag law. If your commander tells you to do something you should not do, and you see, and the quote is, a black flag around it, you are forbidden from doing it. Excuse me, did you just say something to him, sir? Orlando, go get security. Go tell the matter. Search Virginia Care. Go get security. All right, so does that make sense about? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
See the black flag,
and so you are forbidden from doing it. If whatever it is, if your commander says rape that woman, you're not allowed. If the commander says kill that kid, you're not allowed. And in fact, you then have to report the commander. Then that you wouldn't see the black flag, would you? There's a member of this community who will remain nameless right now. He served in the IDF. He still has, you know what I'm talking about. He still has nightmares on a regular basis where he has to drink himself to sleep because he blacked out when he was serving in the IDF. And there were 2 Palestinian Arab kids, and one had thrown a grenade that had killed the guys next to him. He does not remember what happened after that, except that apparently he shot and killed the other kid with the grenade. Killed them both. He still has nightmares of the kid's face. That's weird. So the point is, again, these things exist, and you can summon the dead. You can speak with the dead. You can do all sorts of things. But you're not allowed to. Even though it's something that can be done, you're not allowed to. Please continue, Fiona. Yes.
So there are people,
loudly.
There is a movement of people doing ancestral healing work, like Teresa Firestone. You've heard of her?
Oh, no, I hear. I know.
So what is that in terms of?
No idea.
Okay.
No idea what
That's
Teresa's
fair.
doing. I know no clue what she's doing.
It's ancestral healing. She's doing meditations to sort of give blessings to those that are gone.
We do that all the time, so I'm not sure what. I don't want to comment because I don't know what she's doing. Okay, I don't. That term, I don't know what.
She's not a medium or anything.
No, I suspect she is. my suspicion is that she's trying to help people come to terms with their own ancestral history.
Yes.
Not about people who are dead. Okay, it has nothing to do with people who are dead. And by the way, let me just aside, I'm going to just toss out something else because you brought that up. And again, I'm terrified of going off on tangents, as you know. Who knows what waqf is? W-A-Q-F. Okay,
We were at that lecture.
so waqf is an Islamic right. If you give the temple $5 million and a building is built in your name for the temple, we don't work this way, but you get your place in heaven because of all the charities, right? If 100 years from now that temple building becomes condos, it doesn't affect your soul, right? In the Quran and the Hadiths, there's specific dialogue about waqf. So Mr. Abdullah dedicates, whether it's silverware or land or a building, to Allah. He gets his points for having done that. And then we talked about this language. He gets his points for having done that. But if later that land or object or whatever it is sold to condos, Mr. Abdullah, who was been in heaven for 300 years, is thrown out. So his descendants have an obligation to therefore get the land for Allah so that he can be brought back in.
I have a question about that.
Yes.
So I heard recently from somebody that
Loudly.
I heard recently that if you have a synagogue, but you allow the synagogue to be used as a prayer for Muslims.
Yep.
That in a sense you've just what's called waqf. That,
W-A-Q-F. Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yep. It's a one-way bridge, as Robert Spencer puts it. The moment you invite them into your space and they say the prayer for Allah, it is now their space.
Forever.
So all the interfaith dialogue events, I'm great with having interfaith dialogue events, but you don't get to say an Islamic prayer.
In the physical building.
The moment, even if you do it quietly to yourself. So I need to know it's someone who I can trust isn't going to do that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I thought that was.
Yeah. So that's on your ancestral link. Please, Fiona, please continue. We'll never get through.
And Samuel? Is that where it's going?
And Samuel.
And Samuel was dead, and all Israel had lamented him and buried him in Ramah in his own city. And Saul had expelled those who were mediums and the wizards out of the land. And the Philistines gathered themselves together and came and camped in Shunem. And Saul gathered all Israel together, and they camped in Gilboa. And when Saul saw the camp of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart greatly trembled. And when Saul inquired of the Lord answered him not, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophets.
Okay, so let's just back up. King Saul's the king. Samuel, the great prophet, is dead. And Saul is scared of the Philistines, and so he's not getting an answer. Now, earlier, Saul had prohibited any mediums, anyone from ever summoning the dead. Now, remember, in that Ushpizin prayer in Sukkot, we do not summon them, we invite them. You want to have your grandma come to you, invite her every day if you want. Totally cool. But you don't summon them, because we do have the power to summon the dead. And so the idea is we don't, but we invite them. The difference is me coming over, pulling your arm and pulling you over here, and me saying, oh, come over. And if you want to come, you come. If you don't, you don't. But if I take you over, pull you over, does that make a difference now? Okay, please continue. That's the situation. Go on.
And when then said Saul to his servants, seek me a woman who is a medium, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servants said to him, behold, there is a woman in Ain Dor who is a medium. And Saul disguised himself.
Loudly.
And Saul disguised himself and put on other garments and went, he and 2 men with him. And they came to the woman by night. And he said, I beg you, divine for me by a spirit, and bring him up for me, whoever I shall name to you. And the woman said to him, behold, you know what Saul has done, how he has expelled those who are mediums, and the wizards from the land. Why then do you lay a snare for my life to cause me to die? And Saul swore to her by the Lord, saying, as the Lord lives, there shall be no punishment happen to you for this thing. Then said the woman, whom shall I bring up to you? And he said, Bring me up Samuel. And when the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice. And the woman spoke to Saul, saying, Why have you deceived me?
Notice he doesn't say invite Samuel. He doesn't say she invited Samuel to come, which is totally cool. It says, what does it say specifically?
Bring you.
She brought Samuel. Does that make sense now when you phrase it that way? Okay, please continue.
Why have you deceived me? You are Saul. And the king said to her, Do not be afraid, for what did you see? And the woman said to Saul, I saw a godlike man ascending from the earth. And he said to her, What is his appearance? And she said, An old man comes up, and he is covered with a mantle. And Saul perceived that it was Samuel, and he stooped with his face to the ground and bowed. And Samuel said to Saul, Why have you disturbed by bringing me up?
Again, listen to the language. Why have you disturbed me bringing me up? Whole different thing. If I ring your doorbell, you can choose to come or not. If I send you an invite, you can choose to come or not. If I go in and pull you out, whole other place. Okay?
And Saul answered, I am in great distress, for the Philistines make war against me, and God has departed from me, and answers me no more, neither by prophets nor by dreams. Therefore I have called you, that you may make known to me what I shall do. Then said Samuel, Why then do you ask of me, seeing the Lord has departed from you, and has become your enemy? And the Lord has done for himself as he spoke by me, for the Lord has torn the kingdom from your hand, and given it to your neighbor, to David. Because you would not obey the voice of the Lord, nor execute his fierce anger upon Amalek. Therefore has the Lord done this thing to
I'm
you
going to
this
pause
day.
for a moment. We talk about Amalek. It says in the Torah that God will be at war with Amalek from generation to generation. We are to be at war. We are to destroy Amalek. So say, just talk, well, what is Amalek? Amalek, it doesn't say that it's not a party until something breaks. So what is Amalek? It doesn't say the descendants of Amalek. What is Amalek? Amalek is the enemy within. Amalek is the enemy that perpetrates. Because who was Amalek physically? He attacked the Hebrews from behind. With the weak, the children, the old, the infirm, the sick. So any part that anyone or person or organization that is attacking the weak on purpose is Amalek. They are not to be defeated. They are to be destroyed.
Yeah.
On October 5th, the attitude was Hamas is evil, but maybe we can work out peace with them. On October 7th, it was clear Hamas is Amalek. They are not to be defeated. They are to be destroyed. Okay? It's really important. So much so, now fast forward centuries later, Saul is commanded to, he goes to battle with the Amalekites, and he is to destroy all of the Amalekites. Everything Amalekite. And he doesn't. Specifically, he allows a couple to stay alive. But you know what else he allows all to stay alive? Their animals. What the poor little animal do? The animal's innocent, right? Why should the animal be killed because of Amalek? Right? That doesn't make sense. But the answer is because let's say that Stan is walking with a goat, okay? And I say, Stan, that's a good-looking goat you got there. Where'd you get it from? And he says, well, I got it as spoils of war against Amalek. Really? Who was Amalek? And so Amalek gets perpetuated. So even the animals are to be killed, even the innocents, being part of that. Saul doesn't do that. And when he doesn't do that, Samuel kills the king, says that the crown is being taken from you, and then he ends up anointing David. This is why he loses the kingdom, because he does not destroy evil, which is not to be negotiated with. It is to be destroyed. Please continue.
And the Lord will also deliver Israel with you into the hand of the Philistines. And tomorrow shall you and your sons be with me. The Lord also will deliver the camp of Israel into the hand of the Philistines. Then Saul fell at once full length upon the ground, and was greatly afraid, because of the words of Samuel. And there was no strength in him, for he had not eaten bread all day nor all night.
Okay, so what do we learn from the story? First of all, you can bring the dead back. Second of all, you know, conversations with them. Third of all, they remember. Now, this is going to be interesting and important when we understand a little piece of Jewish theology. There is the custom that to go to a sage's grave and pray at that grave. So if I go to the grave of Rebbe Nachman, or how many of you are going to Israel? Oh, okay. So when we go, we're up in Tiberias, and you go to the grave of Rabbi Akiva, right? And you say a prayer. Are you saying a prayer to Rabbi Akiva? Of course not. You're just saying a prayer, and you're saying, hey, Akiva, you've got a little bit more oomph than I do. Will you please take this prayer and bring it up to the heavens with you, and will you support this prayer? And say, you know what, that prayer from that Shmendrik with the ponytail, we like it. Please help. Okay? So that's, we learn all that from this passage. Okay, please continue.
And even after my skin is torn from my body, from my flesh, will I see God.
So this tells us a couple of things. It's a really interesting line from Job. Number one, that there is it tells us that there is an awareness of the dead soul, and that one of the lenses that the dead soul sees through is the remains of the body. Okay? So we don't cremate. We traditionally do not cremate, and that's one of the reasons. Another reason is because our theology, which typically, unless you're an ultra-Orthodox rabbi, you don't want to talk about, our theology says that when the Messiah comes, we're all going to be resurrected. I have a problem with that because I want to know if I'm going to be resurrected the way I look now or when I was 19 and playing racquetball professionally. I just want to know. And so, but it doesn't say, but you're resurrected from a bone here called the hyoid bone. And it says that we will all be raised from the dead. So we say it every day in the Amidah, in that prayer. And again, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, honestly, personally, because why would cremains be any different? Eventually, it's just dust anyway. But remember I said that our laws around death, dying, and the afterlife are all for people living more than they are for the dead, right? The bigger reason I think that we don't cremate is because it's easy to turn those cremains into... Okay, there was someone from Israel. It's easy to... I know the ring. It's easy to turn the cremains into an altar. Oh, look! There's Grandma on the mantle. And not to really grieve because you make it into an icon. It's one of the reasons, by the way, we don't know where Moses is buried. Now, this is going to sound funny, but it's not until you get the call. Rabbi Fiona, help me, I don't know what to do. What's wrong? The maid knocked Grandma off the mantle, and the cat ate half of Grandma. You are sick. I like it. Right? Those you didn't hear, he said, eat the cat. So that sounds like a funny conversation, right? But it's not. The person's in trauma. The maid vacuumed up Grandma. The cat ate Grandma. Moreover, what do? You got two kids, and they're going to split the cremains. Who got the top half? Who got the bottom half? Because I know top half is a lot more interesting to me than having Grandma's bottom half. Not really too inspiring, right? So for the sake of the living, we also do not have cremains in that way. But it's also because we do see through the flesh. Okay, who wants me to read the next page that begins, and many of those? Someone, loudly. Go.
And many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt.
This again is the issue of we will awaken, we will be raised, we will be resurrected. On.
They that divine by a ghost or a familiar spirit come under the head of sorcerers.
Okay, so that tells us what? Can you divine by a ghost or a spirit? Can you?
Well, you're not supposed to, but obviously.
It wouldn't be forbidden if you couldn't do it, right? You don't forbid something that's impossible. There's this great dialogue in the Talmud. People say women can't be rabbis. It's a dialogue in the Gemara, and they can't lead services, right? You guys have heard that before? But in the Gemara, there's a dialogue about what a woman can and cannot wear when she is publicly reading the Torah and leading a service. What does that tell you? We had 2,500 years ago. Pretty simple, huh? And by the way, it makes a lot of sense. It says that you can't have this flowing kafta with nothing underneath that's low cut, because when she bends over to read the Torah, all the men aren't going to be listening to Torah. They're going to be looking down her shirt. Okay. Similarly, by the way, there's a dialogue about what the high priest can and cannot wear. That he must have something under his kaftan, because when he does the Elenu and he gets down and he goes down, we don't want to look at his junk either. Right?
Not very tasty.
So, go ahead, continue, please.
Give me your attention, the master said, and I will teach you again. And so he taught him another 400 times. A bath call issued forth,
Bakol is a heavenly voice.
asking him, do you prefer that 400 years shall be added to your life, or that you and your generation shall be privileged to have a share in the world to come? Then he replied, I and my generation shall be privileged to have a share in the world to come. Give him both, said the Holy One, blessed be he.
So he could have gotten 4 years, but because he made the right answer, he got both. Okay, because God is very kind and treats us like loving parent. Go on.
When Ahar died, they said,
Okay, who is Aher? For Aher, there's an amazing book. I recommend it to everyone. It's called As a Driven Leaf by Friedman. And it's a historical fiction book about Aher. So there are 4 rabbis who, through meditation, through whatever system, they're able to enter paradise. And one dies, one goes blind, one cuts off the roots, that's Aher. He cuts off everything from being involved in Judaism. He's the ultimate Epicurean. He worships the physical pleasures, and only Akiva goes and returns in peace. So Aher is this Epicurean who knows so much and so amazing, and throws it all away. Says he knows so much, he no longer believes in any of it. Any of you guys know people like that? Right? Generally they're teenagers, but they're so smart that they really know nothing. So okay, that's Aher. Go on. Let's talk about Aher.
They said, let him not be judged, nor let him enter the world to come. Let him not be judged, because he engaged in the study of the Torah, nor let him enter the world to come, because he sinned. Rabbi Meir said, it were better that he should be judged and that he should enter the world to come. When I die, I shall cause smoke to rise from his grave. When Rabbi Meir died, smoke rose up from Amer's grave. Rabbi Yochanan said, what a mighty deed to burn his master. There was one amongst us, and we cannot save him. If I were to take him by the hand, who would snatch him from me? But, said he, when I die, I shall extinguish the smoke from his grave. When Rabbi Yochanan died, the smoke ceased from Amer's grave.
And so Aher was led into heaven. Okay? Again, the idea that there is this whole other level of existence. How many of you play an instrument? Okay. Well, if you did, you still do, if you don't play it well either. Okay. So, who plays piano? Okay. So when you play piano, who does not play an instrument at all? Okay. If we're playing a piano concerto, the two of you will hear different music than the two of you. You will be affected by notes that you don't consciously hear, whereas you will hear those conscious notes in the extremes of the scale, right? An orchestral master, someone who really is a musician, will listen to an orchestra and hear all sorts of subtleties, as opposed to someone just experiencing and loving the orchestra. It's not better or worse. It's not that one hears deeper or less, or is more moved. It's just that one hears a wider range. Think of that when it comes to this world and not of this world. This world is the middle keys of the piano, right? It's the melody line that we're listening to. But the other keys, do they affect our experience of this world? Absolutely. Even if we're not conscious of it. Does that make sense to everyone? That's a good way of looking at this. And it really is a consciousness issue. I will just share, you guys know how much I love Allison. And we all agree that I married above my station. Right? No one's ever questioned that. No one, ever, because it's right. It's true. It's good, right? So, Allison has no musical background. I play 7 instruments, so I played the same. And I finally realized why she wasn't getting certain things when I would refer to music. and we played the same. I had the two recordings of the same song, but one was in a major key and one is in a minor key. Radically different for those of us who understand music. She could not hear the difference. She literally did not hear the difference in the notes of going bum 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 to bum 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 bum. She did not hear it. That's the other world. We're either aware of it to whatever level or we're not. But it does affect us. Please continue.
A favorite saying of Rob was, "The future world is not like this world. In the future world, there is no eating, nor drinking, nor propagation, nor business, nor jealousy, nor hatred, nor competition. But the righteous sit with their crowns on their heads, feasting on the brightness of the divine presence. As it says, and they beheld God and did eat and drink."
Someone should talk to the person who edited this handout that we already had that earlier handout. Please continue.
All Israel have a portion in the world to come. For it is written, "Thy people are all righteous. They shall inherit the land forever. The branch of my planting, the work of my hands, that I may be glorified." But the following have no portion therein.
Okay, so you start off as a Jew, automatic portion. You're cool. You're going to the good place, for lack of a better term. Go on. Who can get out of that?
He who maintains that resurrection is not a biblical doctrine.
It is.
The Torah.
Wait. By the way, just because something's a biblical doctrine, are we allowed to disagree with it? Absolutely. Okay, absolutely. We can disagree with the biblical doctrine. Anyone here or anyone who's Jewish and eating shrimp is disagreeing with the biblical doctrine. But that doesn't mean that it made the shrimp kosher, does it? Right? Please continue.
The Torah was not divinely revealed. And Epicurus, Rabbi Akiva added, "One who reads uncanonical books, also one who whispers a charm over a wound and says, 'I will bring none of these diseases upon thee which I brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee.'" Abasal says, "Also one who pronounces the divine name as it is spelled."
You okay, Bob? So you really need to understand that when he says that it's not one who believes that it's not biblical doctrine. Biblical doctrine is that we all get raised. Doesn't mean that I agree with it, but that is what the doctrine says. Does that make sense? So what? That we're all going to get resurrected. Okay. The Torah not being divinely revealed. Whether you believe that it is divinely revealed or revealed through God's inspiration through men, it's still divinely revealed, isn't it? It's only if you believe that it was a political document only meant for political purposes that's not true. And one who reads, who whispers a charm over a wound and says this. So if someone gets hurt, they start to do that kind of charming. Otherwise, everyone's cool. You're all set. Okay, who wants to continue reading? Someone else, with a nice loud voice. Go.
Judah assembled 10 men every day, and they sat in his place. After 7 days, the dead
So
man.
why are they sitting? Why are 10 men assembled? It's a Shiva minion. Okay. Go on.
After 7 days, he, the dead man, appeared to him in a dream and said to him, "Thy mind be at rest, for thou hast set my mind at rest." Ahu said, "The dead man knows all that is said in his presence until the top stone, Golel, closes the grave."
He's on it, two rabbis.
Differ therein. One maintains until the top stone closes the grave, whilst the other says until the flesh rots away.
So when is the soul separated from the body? Well, we got three opinions right here. But that's why we have a shomer. If it's true, if the opinion that it's true that the body, before it's in the grave, can hear, the soul can hear, then all we want him hearing is praise of God and prayers, right? That we don't go and hang out, we don't do the wake kind of thing. We don't have the open casket there and say, let us drink a drink to Robert, who is so holy and he slept with this many women and drank his whiskey so well. May he get to heaven a minute before the devil knows he's dead. We don't do that, okay? Because the corpse, we believe the soul can hear it. Okay, go on.
Or Simeon be Lachish?
Lachish, yes.
Okay. There is no
Gehenna.
Gehenna in the world to come, but the Holy One, blessed be He, will draw forth the sun from its sheep. The righteous shall be healed, and the wicked shall be judged and punished thereby.
What does that mean? We don't have purgatory, which is the best English word for that. How many of you can think of something you've done in your life that still you're ashamed of?
You have to share it?
No. No. Not Q&A that way.
Okay, good.
All right. But we can okay. But here's what I will ask. For how many of you is that thing that you're ashamed of more than a day old? Keep your hand, raise your hand. Keep your hand up. More than a week, month, year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Okay? So, or even longer, right? So you can hold on to it for years. So now, there are the things that we're not ashamed because we don't even realize that we may have hurt something. So now in the world to come, a bright light is shining, and it shines on you, and you're able to see, when you did this, it really was a good deed. It did this. You didn't even know. You did this, and it saved these 20 people because you did this. You saved this man by giving him $5 who was homeless, and he went on to have to get his life together, have a son, and the son developed a cure for cancer. So all those righteous deeds you get to bask in. And let's think of any of those deeds that you might be ashamed of. The light is also shown on them. That's painful, isn't it? Like you said, we don't want to share those things, do we? Okay? Well, Fiona does. She just wants to share.
No. Not going there.
Okay, you know what? I'm just thinking, you were a professional dancer. I don't even want to know.
Oh, go there.
In a time that was much more...
60s.
Yes, thank you.
Risky. That's where the word came from.
Please continue.
An emperor said to Rabban Gamaliel, "Ye maintain that the dead will revive, but they turn to dust, and can dust come to life?" Thereupon the emperor's daughter, said to him, "Rabbi, let me answer him. In our town there are 2 potters. One fashions his products from water, and the other one from clay. Who is the more praiseworthy? He who fashions them from water," he replied. "If he can fashion man from water, too, surely he can do so from clay."
Okay, so the idea again being, if God can fashion a human being from what is called in the Talmud a putrid drop of water, a putrid drop of liquid, can we all understand what that actually he's referring to? It's physical fluid. And can fashion a human out of that. How much is it easier for God to fashion a human out of dust? Make sense? I never saw the show, but there was a show called Joan of Arcadia. How many of you remember the show? A number of years ago. And a friend of mine, Father Tree, was a colleague at Loyola. He loved telling this story, that there's a scene in it where there's this girl, Joan, and she doesn't believe she's talking to God. And she says, "Prove it." He says, "Turn around." She goes, "What's the big deal? It's just a big tree." He goes, "Yeah, let's see you do that." Okay? God can do all these things is the point. Okay, who wants to read the next page? Come on, someone the next page. Somebody. Humana. Go, sir.
Our Joseph, the son of our Joshua, Levi, who became ill and fell into a trance. When he recovered, his father asked him, "What did you see?" "I saw a topsy-turvy world," he replied. "The upper class underneath and the lower on top," he replied. "My son," he observed, "you saw a clear world. And how are we situated there? Just as we are here. So are we there?" And I heard them saying, "Happy is he who comes hither with his learning in his hand."
The one thing that you can be guaranteed of that is in this world and carries through, has benefits in this world and has benefits in the next, is sacred study. So if you look at the Hebrew letters, how many of you read Hebrew? How many of you know Hebrew goes from right to left? So in the Hebrew letters, there's a line in the Torah, and all the letters are either above the line or below the line. Okay? One letter is above the line, through the line, and below it. It is the letter Lamed. Makes the L sound. It also is a word. Lomed means to study, to learn, to teach. So what the merit we gain by being here right now or being online instead. Stays with us and not only gives us value in this world, but value in the next, because like a crown, we wear it when we head into the next world. Okay, please continue.
It has been said, infant from when may he enter the future world. Our Aya and our Simeon rabbi disagree. One maintained from birth, the other from when it spoke. The one who says that it's from birth derives it from the verse. They shall come and shall declare his righteousness unto a people that shall be born, that he hath done this. The one who holds from when it spoke deduces it from the verse. A seed shall serve him, it shall be related of the Lord for a generation.
The dialogue they're having, I'm telling you, these rabbis have the most passionate dialogues about the most tiny of things. Is when is a soul, when can it go? And one says from the moment it comes out of the womb, and one says from the time it makes the first noise. Okay? It's not talking about speaking as in having a conversation, but from the time it makes the first noise. Please continue.
It has been stated, Ravina maintained, from conception, as it is written, a seed shall serve him. Rabbi Nachman the Isaac said, from its circumcision, from it, for it is written, I am afflicted and ready to die from my youth up. While I suffer thy terrors, I am distracted.
So again, the idea of when it's a soul that is more developed and can enter the world to come in that form. Go on.
For it is taught, for full 12 months the body is in existence, and the soul ascends and descends. After 12 months, the body ceases to exist, and the soul ascends, but descends nevermore.
I have a question. How many of you have ever been around someone in the moment of death? Moment of death. So I'm going to look at if you're a woman, raise your hands. Okay. And you're all mothers? Okay. So I know two of you are with me. So there's a parallel to the power of birth and the power of death, isn't there? There's something numinous about it. And we need to remember that the body is the vessel, and whether the soul is coming in or the soul is coming out. Anyone ever heard anyone describe a near-death experience? How do they describe it?
In his case, it was just he went to sleep.
Okay, so you didn't have to remember. But many people describe it as there's a tunnel, right? And there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
I specifically asked him.
Because we've heard that from so many people. It's common experience. Now imagine that your baby inside the womb could talk as soon as he gets out. You say, hey, what was your experience like when you were coming out of the womb? Well, what do you say? Well, I was nice and comfortable, and then there was a tunnel, and there was a bright light on the outside of the tunnel, and there were people there waiting for me. It's a parallel, isn't it?
Oh my God, yeah.
Right? It's the same. The opposite of death is not life. The opposite of death is birth. And life extends before birth and after death. It's just a moment of passage. It's just right. Go on.
I mean, I'm probably skipping.
Loudly.
I'm probably skipping ahead. I was a hospice social worker.
Okay. You've seen many people die.
Many, and they would always. I mean, I'm probably skipping way ahead.
No, go.
But they would see their relatives. I mean, they would see their family. What are your thoughts about
that? When the baby's about to come out, they're seeing daddy and family too. Right? The Dagra people of Burkina Faso in Africa. That's not Israel. In Burkina Faso in Africa, have a ritual when a baby is about to be born. All the little children are outside the hut, and when the baby is born and they hear the cry, all the children come out and start laughing and crying in joy to say, "Welcome! We were waiting for you." Why would death be any different? Think about it. Why would it be any different than that, or different from? This is used a lot at funerals. I never say this at funerals because I think it's so cliche. But, someone goes in a boat and there are loved ones and they go on a cruise and the cruise goes over the horizon and we wave. We're never going to see them again. They go somewhere else. But on the other side of the horizon, there are other people waiting to say, hey, nice to have you over here. How many of you guys have heard rabbis say that at funerals? I just think that's I just think it's cliche. The other one that I think is cliche is, how many of you have heard the Dash poem? Wow. There's this whole poem that someone wrote about, 1900 to 1950 Dash, and the life is about the dash between the years. And as a supplement, again, I can't. Funerals, I think, are supposed to be personal, not that. So,
Live the day.
yeah, I live the dash. So, the idea again is that the soul's going back and forth to the body, and then it's gone. But you can invite it to come back, but you can't summon it. You're not allowed to summon it. Please continue.
Rava, in the name of our Johanna, further stated, the Holy One, blessed be He, will make 7 canopies for every righteous man. For it is said, and Lord will create over the whole habitation of Mount Zion, and over her assemblies a cloud of smoke by day, and the shining of a flaming fire by night. For over all the glory shall be a canopy. This teaches that the Holy One, blessed be He, will make for everyone a canopy corresponding to his rank. Why is smoke required in a canopy? Rabbi Hanina said, because whoever is niggardly towards the scholars in this world will have his eyes filled with smoke in the world to come.
So the idea that in the next world is righteous, it's beautiful, and there's this canopy, and it's wonderful, like a wedding canopy. It's the same word, a chuppah. But there might be smoke. Why? Because you didn't pay respect to scholars, to teachers of Torah. So the idea, if in this world you're letting smoke appear, how much more so in the next world will you see the results of that? I think that's a little self-serving, honestly, for a rabbi to say that, but there's a point. Traditionally, when a rabbi walks into the room, and I do this with my teachers, we stand. I stand for Rabbi Shulchan when he walks in the room, or Schwartzy of blessed memory, or Reb Abraham, or any number of people. We give respect to that. There's, in fact, an entire prayer during the service called Kaddish de Rabbanan, which is a Kaddish, just like the normal Kaddish we say, but does anyone know the paragraph in between? Go on, one of you two say, because I know you both know it. Go on. So it's all about, may there be blessings upon our teachers and the teachers of our teachers, and it's the one prayer I will never lead in public in a congregation where I work, because I serve, because I feel like it's self-serving. Okay, everybody pray for me now. And so I'm not comfortable with that. But that it is a Kaddish de Rabbanan. It's a prayer for our scholars. When we go to Israel, how many of you have been to how many have been to Israel and been to Tiberias? Let's start with that. Okay, so have you been to Rabbi Akiva's grave? So it's just really, for those of you who are not, it's on this hill, and over here is Rabbi Akiva's tomb. I actually made the boys kneel down and take a picture on it, and they have like teenage faces, like, Daddy, why are you making this? Because it's Rabbi Akiva, that's why. Okay. And then on the other side of the parking lot is the tomb and a synagogue built around the tomb of Rabbi Meir of the Talmud, Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes. And you go and you pay homage, because these were, Akiva was this amazing scholar, Meir, this amazing miracle worker. And so we honor that, again, because that Lamed goes through all the worlds, and studying and teaching. Please continue. Wait, we turn pages. Sorry, so who else wants to read now? On the next page. Page 7. Who wants to read?
Where it teaches that Caleb?
It teaches that Caleb, yes.
It teaches that Caleb held aloof from the plan of the spies, and went and prostrated himself upon the graves of the patriarchs, saying to them, My fathers, pray on my behalf, that I may be delivered from the plan of the spies. Implication of ancestors praying for us.
Okay, so 12 spies go out. They come back. Joshua and Caleb say, well, let's go into Israel. The other 10 say, oh no, the people are so big, we'll get killed, etc., etc. And so the Hebrews wander for 40 years as a result, because they don't have faith, even after seeing the plagues and seeing the Exodus and seeing the Sea of Reeds. Caleb prays for the ancestor to be an intercessor, to to pray on his behalf. Okay, it's like asking for someone who has just a little bit more oomph to do it. Go on.
Rabbi Eliezer said, "Repent one day before your death." His disciples asked him, "Does then one know on what day he will die? Then all the more reason that he repent today," he replied, "lest he die tomorrow, and thus his whole life is spent in repentance."
Isn't that a good way to live? Fix your mistakes now with alacrity. Don't wait. Continue.
I heard from the Baal Shem Tov that the greatest hell for the wicked is paradise. The only delights in paradise are spiritual things, such as Torah study and prayer. The wicked are not accustomed to these things and therefore experience them as hell.
Isn't that interesting? There's a great story Shlomo Carlebach used to tell us, that there was this man, Moishe, and Elijah came to him and said, I'm going to grant you whatever you want to do because you've done so many righteous deeds. So Moishe says, I want to see what hell is like. And so he takes him down to hell. And in hell, there's everyone. And in front of everyone is this table of food, those delicious foods, and these wonderful delicacies. But they have no elbows, and they can't bend their arms, so they're all going like this, suffering because they can't get the food in. Moshe says, okay, if that's hell, what's heaven? Let's go up. So they take the elevator, they go up, they get up to heaven, and there's this delicious table with all the delicacies and food. And none of the people there will be elbows either. But they're all feeding each other. It's what you're used to and what your values are that make the difference. Please continue. I like that story. I love what Carlebach says. And Carlebach actually is the one who says, he takes the elevator up.
It is written, God planted a garden in Eden from before, Genesis 2:8. Our sages comment that the Garden of Eden or paradise was created before the universe. The holy rabbi, Dov Ber, asks, how was the Garden of Eden created before man? Is it not true that each person creates his own Garden of Eden through his good deeds? That being so, where was this Garden of Eden before man was created? He explained that for God, past and future are exactly the same. He looks and sees until the end of all generations. The delight that God has made from the righteous who would do his will, therefore, existed even before the righteous were created. This delight came before God, causing him to create the Garden of Eden.
Okay, so the idea that, yes, we create our own paradise, but that's based on our linear understanding. So, in fact, it's already been created. That's a hard concept for us to get around, and yet it is a basic theological concept in Judaism. So in Judaism, the four-letter name of God is Yud, He, Vav, and He. People call it Yehovah, Yahweh, Yahweh, Jehovah, all the different names. Because it's four soft letters and we don't know the vowels. So let's look at the word for a moment, not from a pronunciation point of view or from a what does it mean point of view, but from purely as if we were linguistic scholars. Okay? How many of you speak a foreign language? Okay. What do you speak?
French,
So in those Romance languages, tell me, because I don't speak them. Okay. In Hebrew, we have the root of a word, which then can be conjugated male, female, past, present, or future. Is that similar with those Romance languages? Yes? You go.
Not entirely, but yes.
Yes, that's a general. Okay. Spanish, that's okay. Same in Hebrew. So in the Yud, He, Vav, and He, the two middle letters, okay, of He and Vav is the root, if we're just looking at it as a word. Does that make sense? And those are the letters of the root Lehio, which means to exist or to be. When you put a Yud in front of a word, it makes it future tense masculine. So if I want to say, he will speak, I say that he yedaber, the bear meaning speak. With me, everyone? Okay. If when you put a hey at the end of a word, it makes it past tense, feminine. So again, deber meaning to speak, yedaber means he will speak. Debra, that H sound at the end, means she spoke. With me? So is everyone? Everyone with me on this? Wait, you're giving me that look. You with me?
I'll be with you.
Okay.
Keep going.
So, since it is the verb to exist, and before it is the letter that means future tense masculine, at the end of it is the letter that's past tense feminine. Our name of God, literally, linguistically, is the simultaneous conjugation of the verb to exist, which is present, in future and in past, in male and in female. So our definition of God, just by the word, is literally past, present, future, male, female, all at once. So while we think of past leads to present leads to future, from God, it's all at once. Does that make sense? It's a whole other awareness we can't conceive. Does that help a little bit?
So time doesn't exist.
Time does not. The hiot. The hiot. To be. Right? Make sense? Okay. Let us continue. Who wants to continue? Who's checking my Hebrew? Do I pass? So, let's continue. The second pair. Go on. Who's reading just now? Okay, continue.
Are we at worldly or Rabbi Nachman?
Worldly.
Worldly things are good for the righteous person, since everything can bring him to the world to come. If one does not have his worldly needs, he cannot fulfill the Torah and commandments which are needed for the world to come. Thus, for example, one needs money to take in guests, make a sukkah, buy an etrog, tzatzit, and mezuzah, and support a wife and children. A rightwood person must therefore have sufficient for his needs in this world.
We are not a tradition of austerity and poverty. Okay? Because that may be what you choose to do, that may be what the world is bringing, but we don't believe you get extra points for being, for that. Unlike the priesthood, if that makes sense. Does that make sense to everybody when I say it that way? Because if you don't have anything, then you can't say, come to my house for Shabbos dinner, come dwell in my sukkah. We build the community sukkah at our house every year, okay? Now, I've been building a sukkah that size at my house since I was in my 20s, okay? But we build it. And it's not cheap to build it, is it, Orlando? And it's a lot of work, and a lot of you have helped with it. You know how much effort. It's a lot of effort, isn't it? Time, effort, energy, and money. If you don't have the space to do it, it makes it even harder. So the idea is that God provides for our needs so that we can give charity, so that we can invite people to Shabbos dinner, so we can do those things that are important. Because that will follow us in the world to come. Go on.
Rabbi Nachman says, we call the reward of the future world good because there is no other word in human speech that can describe it. But it is really so much higher than any concept of good that is actually inadequate. The most that we and say
Can't say sorry.
We and say.
I'm telling you, the guy
That most that we can say of the world to come, therefore, is that it's good. Actually, regarding the world to come, it is written, no eye has seen it other than God.
Isn't that interesting? But we call it good, but it's not good. It's not. What is it? What's the Christian concept? The streets are paved with gold. That's not it for us. There's just the word good is not enough. Please continue.
Well, isn't that America?
I think it's heaven.
It's 7 And you are faithful to resuscitate, also translated as revive, the dead. Praised are you who resuscitates the dead.
This is from the Amidah that we say twice a day in our prayer book. You know what's really interesting? If you go to Reform prayer book, it doesn't say that. Okay, if you go to Reform prayer book, it does not say that. In the Hebrew, it doesn't say that. It does not say that. It says, I forget what the Hebrew that they put in is, but the English is, praise to you, Lord our God, who, it's something like who does good and brings light or something like that. Because they don't want to deal with the issue, which is a very complex issue, right? What happens after you die? Instead, let's just not deal with it. But that's not very fair to Judaism, is it? Might as well be Protestants. Go ahead. Please continue.
I just didn't know.
What?
I don't have a Reformed prayer book.
The Reformed prayer book does not say Mechai.
I didn't know.
The other thing it does not say in the Amidah when they add the women. So the Hebrew says, "Blessed are you, Lord our God, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, great, mighty, and exalted." Right? The rabbi's asking the Gemara, why do we say God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob? Why do we not just say God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? And they answer. They say because Abraham found God on a mountain, Isaac found God in a field, and Jacob found God in a building. So the Reform movement in the 70s starts, and by the 80s it's really caught on. They start saying now the matriarchs. Okay? So they say God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, God of Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. Okay? The problem is that this is actually misanthropic. So, you ladies, you can find God on a mountaintop, true? You can find God in a field. You can find God in a building. How do Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah find God? They can't have babies, and they're barren, and they get pregnant and have babies. Okay? So, the patriarchs, all you women can find God the same way. Can any of us find God getting pregnant? I do not care what popular media says. Can any of us find God getting pregnant? No. Okay? So that's why it's actually misanthropic. But at the end of the Avot and Geburot, it says, "Blessed are you, O Lord our God, Magen Avraham," the shield of Abraham. And in the English, they translate it as shield of Abraham and Sarah. But in the Hebrew, what they put down is Magen Avraham, Be'ezrat Sarah, and his helper, Sarah. I think that's the meaning. But most of the people in the foreign world aren't reading the Hebrew, and they don't know what it means. So in the English, it says, shield of Abraham and Sarah. But that's not Bezrat Sarah. That's not what it means, does? It's either with his helper, Sarah, or with the help of Sarah. Right? We say Bezrat Hashem, with the help of God, with God's help. Now, again, I'm not a woman. Okay? Don't start. Okay.
What's your pronoun?
My pronoun is kishon my tochas. So I did a whole article on the idea of different pronouns. Actually, it's idol worship, because no matter what you do, you cannot change your chromosomes, number one. Number two, how can you have a day?
How can you have what?
Day. So, but that's a different issue. Look, if you identify as a woman, that's one thing. That doesn't mean you are. I have a question, because Allison asked me this today. So the boys doing independent study, and Ben answered a question. He answered it, I believe, correctly, and they gave it to him wrong, and he told the counselor, and she fixed it. Which of the following are a gender? Wait. Masculine, male, bisexual, homosexual.
Male.
How many of you say male? The federal answer, because this is through Apex Online, is masculine.
That's not a gender.
First of all, it's an adjective. It's not even a noun.
That's how you act. That's not.
That's correct. There's a difference between sexual preference, gender, and energy. And you may act masculine, but that doesn't change your chromosomes. And so, but isn't that interesting? That was, and she just brought that up today, because they're doing independent state. That's Apex. That's a test. So, it's just so. Anyhow, where was I? Because I got lost. So the point is that we really need to be honest and see these things. Okay. If we look at our prayers, we got to be honest with what they say, and we got to be honest with what changes we make in a prayer. Like, I think that when we say Oseh Shalom, my personal belief is we should say Oseh Shalom b'mramav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'gam hakol ha'olam, and also upon all the world. That's my belief, but I wouldn't change a prayer. And when people do change a prayer, like the Reformed prayer book, and if you know Hebrew, you look at it and you go, that's just excuse me. That's just not appropriate. Okay. Complete with the last paragraph, please.
Well, that's the same idea.
Loudly.
That's the same idea as in the Torah, reading the Torah. Every letter, everything is put there for a purpose. Everything, and you cannot change it. And so what you're saying is the same in the prayer book, that you're not changing it.
If you want to change it, And that's a discussion rabbis would have to say in our movement, we choose to change. That's fine. But know what you're doing. I think that when you include the matriarchs, you're saying to all you men, you can't find God there. And moreover, I think it's demeaning to call Sarah Abraham's helper. I mean, you ladies tell me, do you find that a little offensive? I just find it. If I called Allison my little helper. See, Kim O'Beth, everyone thinks Allison's so quiet and sweet. She'd kick my ass, wouldn't she? Okay. Okay. Please continue with the last paragraph. Oh, yes. I'm sorry. No, that's what this is about. Go. No. First of all, stop that, because the reason we study as groups, the reason we don't study just alone, is because it's through dialogue that we start to understand that which is infinite. Your perspective, your relationship with God is different than everyone else here. And we can all learn from each other.
We were talking about the change from conservative to reform, and I always considered myself reformed, but I'm kind of moving in a different direction now. And I'm just trying to understand why Hasidics believed in being reincarnated, and now I'm getting to the reincarnation, and how did that change? Why did the reform movement so like, no, we don't want that?
All right, so let's read the last paragraph, and then I want to get into that. Okay, is that fair? Okay, read the last paragraph we got here.
Our rabbis taught when Rabbi Eliezer fell ill, his disciples went in to visit him. They said to him, "Master, teach us the paths of life, so that we may through them win the life of the future world." He said to them, "Be solicitous for the honor of your colleagues, and keep your children from meditation, and set them between the knees of scholars."
He's not talking about meditation like when we think of meditating something. He's talking about them just playing on their own arrogance or whatever. Go on.
"And set them between the knees of scholars. And when you pray, know before whom you are standing. And in this way, you will win the future of the world."
Okay, so, let's off this flashlight. So, okay, so the idea is, from the time we're raise ourselves, raise our kids, whether we're children or even as adults, to raise ourselves in a way that is looking forward to, what can I do so I am a better version of myself? And in doing so, what can I do with my children to help them be better versions of themselves? To, as it says in Pirkei Avot, to be at the feet of sages and drink thirstily from their words. So you notice that one of the things we didn't talk about in the handout is reincarnation. But can we all get to a place right now of the Jewish, whether you believe it or not, the Jewish theology accepts the soul lives on beyond this body. We're all on that page. So I'm going to give you a little bit of history first before we go into reincarnation. Okay, it's a good piece of history. Everybody was a Jew. Not everyone, but all Jews were Jews. No one was labeled, you were a Jew. You were inclined to rationalism or mysticism, but you were a Jew. And then in the 1700s in Germany, there were rabbis who said, you know what? We are more German than we are Jews. We are Germans who happen to be Jewish, not Jews who happen to live in Germany. And we need to reform Judaism. And so they cut their payas. They even did their services often on Sundays or in German. And this became the foundation, what became the Reform movement, because they were reforming Judaism. Okay? They called everyone who was not them Orthodox. So there's every Jew, and now they've said, okay, we're reforming, you're all Orthodox. And then in the 1800s, mostly in America and England, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, there were people who said, you know what, we're not as observant as these people, these Orthodox, but we're more conservative than these Reformed, so let's call ourselves conservative Jews. So it was not, everyone was here and it got watered down. And the problem with the conservative movement, which for much of the 20th century was the biggest movement, is that it had a via negativa definition. We're not this, we're not that. So as Orthodox started becoming more modern, orthodox, more liberal in some ways. And as reformers, when I grew up, a reform rabbi didn't wear yarmulke, let alone tallis. How many of you grew up in a reform temple? Okay, so you remember? They didn't wear yarmulke. They wore choir robes, didn't they? Right? So they weren't tallis, they didn't wear yarmulke, right? Where do you wear?
Oh, yarmulke.
You wore yarmulke.
Temple Judea.
Did Judea wear yarmulkes?
Yeah, University of
Okay.
Feeling did.
Because I
Not
don't
all
think.
the time, just on
I mean, Wolf might have. I don't think Magna did. I'm not.
No, I don't. Yeah,
Okay, so then the conservative movement became much smaller because it still had a definition of we're not this, we're not that. But the movements themselves are basically 250 years old in a 3,700-year history. They're blip on the radar. And so in the last 20, 30 years, many of the successful temples that have started are non-denominational or trans-denominational or post-denominational. That's what we are. We use a conservative prayer book, right? We do a lot of our service in English. We use amplified music, and we use music, right? And you wouldn't do that in an Orthodox shul tradition. But you wouldn't do this in a Reformed synagogue, would you? You wouldn't have these dialogues. You wouldn't have these. Make sense? So it's because we were all Jews, and it's going to get back to the point again. I believe when the movements have failed, they've totally failed Judaism. Okay? So Rabbi Shochet gave me a great teaching. He said there's 3 denominations of Jews, and it's not Reformed, Conservative, Orthodox. It's observant, secular, and non-practicing observant Jews. The fact that you are here means you are a non-practicing observant Jew. You have Jewish values, Jewish curiosity, Jewish intellect, Jewish thoughts, Jewish, connection to Israel. But you're not necessarily wrapping tefillin every morning or keeping kosher. Okay? So I like that definition a whole lot better. That there's observant, people who are doing everything. There's secular. They come to the temple maybe 2 days a year. They're the ones who come to temple on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and they're going to be there for an hour. Not an hour and 5 minutes. They're going to be there for an hour. They figure they've done their obligation for their dead grandmother. Okay? And they have no connection to Israel. They're the ones who are saying, let's go sing Kumbaya, etc. Right? So you got that as the secular, and then you've got non-practicing Orthodox. People of Jewish values, Jewish questions, because our tradition is a tradition of questions, not answers. People who have connection to Israel. People who have, look, maybe I come talk about my boys going to Israel. You got goosebumps, right? Because that's a Jewish neshama, right? So it's just, okay, they're non-practicing Orthodox. Which is right. The great question is, when someone says, do you wrap tefillin every day? If you don't, do you know what the proper answer is? Not yet. Because you may. Right?
It's so validating because my relatives were very religious.
They were very observant.
But I felt more Jewish.
They were very observant.
I didn't really do what they did. I didn't know a lot of what they knew, but I felt like I was more Jewish.
So now you get to the Hasidic world.
It's so interesting.
Okay? In that same period of the 18th century, you have the Baal Shem Tov, who's this amazing mystic, who's just one of those Buddha-type beings, and he teaches a lot with stories as well as everything else. And when he dies, 2 of his disciples each take different groups, and you get more and more Hasidic courts. They're actually called Hasidic courts. And you get different movements in the Hasidic movement. Hasid meaning pious, right? And you get Rabbi Nachman, and Rabbi Nachman's he's got his take on things. And you get a guy named Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liodi. Rabbi Shneur Zalman writes a book called the Tanya. Okay, it's in the 19th century. And he says in the introduction that it is for the Jews of his time and place, and it focuses on different Kabbalistic things, because the Baal Shem Tov was a great Kabbalist as well. And especially 3 of the energy centers, one called Chokmah, one called, which is wisdom, one called Bina, which is understanding, one called Da'at, which is knowledge or communication. And from that, you get a movement that comes out of this book and this rabbi called Chabad. Okay? I'm blessed that one of the people who signed my Orthodox ordination was a man named Rabbi Shlomo Schwartzy. Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz of Blessed Mary. How many of you knew Schwartzy?
Yeah, his favorite saying is, he'd say, Rabbi, I want to do this. He'd say, little by little.
How do you become more observant?
Little by little.
Okay.
Actually, book the story about him, little short one.
Yeah, all
after I got married, We were leaving his house on Shabbat. And I said, Rabbi, I want to kosher my kitchen. And he goes, whoa, Habibi, big move. Pretend to be kosher for 6 months. Then come back and talk to me.
So Schwartz.
Is that a Schwartzy thing? Is that right?
So you know what I just found out? That in Machpelah, that the mikveh outside of Machpelah, which is thousands of years old, in Hebron, was rebuilt a number of years ago by people from his temple, and it's called the Schwartzy mikveh.
Really?
Yeah, I just found that out.
Really?
And it's a functioning, workable mikveh.
Yeah.
So Schwartzy was the founder of the first Chabad house in the country. Okay? And you get an idea from his story about who this man was. And I tell Schwartzy stories all the time because he deeply affected me from the time I was a teenager. I have said repeatedly the synagogue would not exist without Schwartzy. To have the courage of having a synagogue with no Jews, which is hard to do, but always a silly one. So, in the days when you had, up until the Rebbe, Rabbi Schneerson, and all the Rebbes before him, a guy who was a Chabad rabbi was a knowledgeable guy. Okay? They had, just like any other rabbinic school, they were in rabbinic school for 5 years. They didn't just learn how to daven real fast, they learned theology. The Rebbe dies. I know it was down to 2 years. I'm told it's down to 1 year. You can become a rabbi in a year. It's 1 year in a Chabad. I've been told that.
Yeah.
Now, how much knowledge does that pisher have? How much wisdom does he have? But I got passed, so I'm going to act like an authority and speak out of my tochas, and no one's going to call him on it because he looks the part. What they're very good at is raising money. They're trained to do it. So now you have that world, which is in some ways beautiful. Breslov Hasidim are amazing. Satmar is amazing. Lovers. But in other ways, in some ways, the younger Chabad rabbis, as one person said it, have become the Amway of Judaism. And say, you can do this, you can't do this. But when confronted, they can't tell you why, other than they were told that. So, every class I give, there's lots of handouts, right? So you can't say, Rabbi, where did this come from? It's clear. Here's the text. Okay, you can go look it up online. It says everywhere everything comes from. And you got to get to a place of, I think we need to have the why and the how. Otherwise, it's just dogma. And so the fact that someone says they are holier than thou because they have payas or they keep kosher. Yeah. Okay. So again, I like the idea of observant, secular, and non-practicing observant. So you guys so does that make sense to you all when I say it that way?
I'm sure you'd agree that.
Loudly.
I'm sure you would agree because you're talking about humans.
Right.
Everything's a bell-shaped curve. So you have people over on this side that are knowledgeable and know, and then you have the other pictures that are over here on this side.
And the
so
guys
you have good and bad of all.
And the guys who are older are fabulous. Danny Yiftach, Sapo, Brisky, these are great guys. Okay, these are knowledgeable, fabulous men.
I'm just saying because it's not.
No.
It's not bad.
No,
it's not. You have.
And the shift happened after he died. Okay.
But the Jewish religion,
Loudly.
we welcome all. So,
Yes.
like, if we don't have a lot of knowledge, the way you're saying it feels so validating. Like, you don't have to have a lot of knowledge, but you're welcome.
So they go to Rabbi
Yeah,
Hillel.
checking them out.
A prospective convert comes to listen to the Talmud, comes to Rabbi Hillel and Rabbi Shammai. Says, teach me the Torah while standing on one foot. Shammai waves his ruler and says, get out of here. Hillel stands on one foot. He says, don't do anyone else what you don't want them doing to you. That is the entire Torah. The rest is commentary. Now going back. Okay. So the idea is that it's not, again, it's about how we live. It's about our outside or inside being honest reflections of each other. It's about trying to be a better version of ourselves. I am not going to be judged upon whether I'm as good as Orlando or Jim, because I'm not. I'm going to be judged, have I been the best version of Michael I can be? And that's part of our theology. So we get into reincarnation. Reincarnation, as we talked about, is discussed in Talmud. And it makes perfect sense now that we've studied, right? Just because you're a soul, maybe you want to stay in the world to come, maybe you want to come back, right? That makes sense. There's even a concept, I can never pronounce it right, transmorphication, that there's a concept in our tradition that, say it loud, that you can be transferred that your soul could become an animal or vice versa. That there's even stories the Baal Shem Tov goes into a field and heals because the grass needs to be healed because the cows are actually, they were human souls who didn't do things right. I actually love, there's a teaching from Yogi Bhajan Khalsa, who brought Kundalini Yoga to this country. Yogi Bhajan said that false spiritual teachers are reincarnated as cockroaches, and their wives are reincarnated as squirrels because they're always chattering. Okay, that was his teaching. But the point is, reincarnation is a legitimate concept. We actually talk about the fact that there are soul roots that we are descended from. And that's Zechariah. In Zohar, it's taught that Zechariah is the reincarnation of the soul of Moses. Okay? This is part of our teachings. But again, the great thing about Judaism, one of the things I think is great, is that we're not about answers, we're about questions and the journey. We're not about the destination. So there's discussions about when does the soul enter the fetus? When does the soul leave the body? But they're discussions and there's arguments. But no one's saying my way's the right way. Does that make sense?
Exactly.
And that's part of Judaism. The moment someone says in Judaism, this is the way, is the moment your red flag warning should go off. Because Judaism is not monolithic. And you don't get extra points because you wear your tzitzit out of your shirt so you can show how holier than I. There's a man, doesn't matter who he is, some of you will know this story, some of you will not. There's a man who claims to be so observant, etc. There's a number of things that are not. But one of the things is on Rosh Hashanah, he actually went to Orlando and said to him, will you take all my stuff back to my hotel because I can't carry it? Now, you know some of the other things this man did. Would you call that someone who was living a Jewish life? Or someone who was acting like he was living a Jewish life?
He was identifying
as an Orthodox Jew.
Yes.
My tzitzit are hanging up bigger than your tzitzit. Okay. So that's not who we are. That's not how we're supposed to be. Judaism is like a multicolored blanket. That image of Jacob's robe that he gives to Joseph, the multicolored robe, that's who we are. That's why the machloket, the debate, the dialogue is so important. It's why we study this stuff with other people, because your insight is as valid as his. Okay? You each have different experiences. Doesn't matter what anyone says, I will have not, cannot, and will never know what it's like to carry a baby in my womb. It's just too much cheesecake. It's not a womb. Okay? You do. No matter what it is like, I will never know, thank God, what it's like to pass 2 watermelons through the eye of a needle. Okay? When Allison had twins. I will never know what it's like for a menstrual cycle. There's lots of things the women will never know what it's like either. And each of us have our own experiences. I will never know what it is like to stand on a stage and be able to be so graceful that people get joy out of watching you move your body. Nobody gets joy out of watching me move my body.
When you dance, it's pretty fun.
I have fun, but I don't know.
Watch.
I don't know if you'd call it dancing. You know the story about dancing. I better we go stay away from dancing. So you know what I'm saying? Everyone has their own relationship with God, and that is so important. I will never know what it's like to have a twin brother. My boys do. Right? And so we study together with the idea that it's not hierarchical. Yeah, you know what? I'm a repository of knowledge and theory of Jewish knowledge. Okay? That's my job. But that's not better or worse than anyone else's. If you wonder about proof of that, you have the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, right? So the Holy of Holies, he would go to the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur once a year. He'd go in there and pray. No one else can even go in there because it's so holy. God will strike you down, right?
That's his son.
Right? Except the janitor goes in on a regular basis to clean it. Doesn't strike him down. His job is just or more important. Make sense? So Judaism is not about the hierarchy. And one of the challenges, so observant, non-observant, reform, secular, whatever it is, it's not that one is better than the other. They're different reflections. I have problems with some of them. So there's that. The other thing to understand about when we talk about the movements is they did not happen in the Sephardic world. They only happened in the Ashkenazi world. Okay? There's no such thing as a Sephardic, traditionally a Sephardic Reform Conservative Orthodox Jew. That was Eastern European where that came out. Okay? So why is that important? Because the movements were radically affected, like we always are. We assimilate. So we're affected by our surroundings, right? And they were affected by Eastern European Catholics. Radically affected. So you ask some of these guys who are wearing black hats and streimels and all this, black suits. Say, why are you wearing that? You know what their answer is? This is our traditional garb. Well, that's a bunch of hoo-ha. Our traditional garb is a white kaftan and a white turban. That was the clothing that the upper middle class wore in Eastern Europe. That's what you're copying. Okay? The idea of, so in Catholicism, the two archetypes of a woman are either a prostitute or a virgin, right? The Virgin Mary or Mary Magdalene. So there is a misogyny inherent in Eastern European that take on those values. Go to an observant Ashkenazi, and she shaved her head and wearing these expensive wigs, which seems kind of counterintuitive. But so why? I'm not supposed to be attracted to anyone but my husband. Well, then A, why are you wearing an expensive wig? And B, are you even attractive to your husband? But that's there. Anyone ever been around Persians? With the long flowing hair and the jewelry and not the same. And their tradition goes back to the 6th century before the Common Era, because they stayed around that. So it picks up a lot of those other pieces. So some of the philosophy and theology you will find in those sects of Judaism is actually historically based upon Catholic influence.
It seems to me with all the anti-Semitism in the world, we should all come together.
There's an idea.
I mean, this is just keeping us apart, right?
You're preaching to the choir. I had a rabbi publish that Rabbi Barkley and his board should be arrested and die. So you're preaching to the choir on that one. But it says in the Talmud, the temple was destroyed because of baseless hatred between Jews. And
what did the rabbi say?
Which,
what did the rabbi say? The Talmud.
Oh, yeah. When I said this to that rabbi, I said, this is what the Talmud teaches. It's this kind of baseless hatred that destroyed the temple. And he actually is a prominent Reform rabbi. He said to me, and I quote, "We're Reform Jews. The Talmud doesn't mean anything."
Whoa.
I said, "Well, but the Torah says you should do it." And which, when I confirmed with the verse from Torah, he proceeded to have a lot of four-letter words ending with "F you" and him hanging up on me. This is our way is to be caring for each other, and that unfortunately is not true, and it's not true on a lot of sides. It's also not true. I don't want to know who's politically liberal or politically conservative here. I don't really care. But I don't know if any of you who are politically conservative, have you ever been to a Reform temple?
Yes.
Right? Which is,
I'm conservative, and that's not working for me
yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, someone once said to me, the only orthodoxy that's demanded by rabbis is Reform rabbis demanding Orthodox leftism.
Last part?
Demanding Orthodox leftism. I don't care what anyone's politics are. You go to Orthodox, no one cares what your politics are. No one cares.
They do it. Yeah, they sure do.
So, it is. So what I'm saying with all that is that Judaism should be inclusive. It should. In Catholicism, your way through to God is through the priest. In Judaism, it is not. I was once offered a very high-paying job many, many years ago, and it doesn't matter what synagogue. And I walked in and said, final negotiation. I said, "You don't want me." They said, "How can you say that? We haven't even talked to you." I said, "You don't want me." Because the ark was here, and the rabbi's pulpit was right here. I said, and it's been there for 50 years. You are saying the path to Torah is through me, and that ain't the path. You come to our synagogue, we go, we're on the sides. We're not the gatekeepers of the Torah, and everyone here knows this. If you don't, you should, because some of you have done it. If you want to borrow a Torah, you just say, "Hey, Rabbi, can we borrow the Torah?" We'll go get it. And you're responsible if there's a financial damage to it. I mean, you're financially responsible if there's damage to it. But it's not my Torah. It is our Torah. And that's what Judaism is. I'm not saying that's how it's acted out all the time, but that is what Judaism is. So you can vouch for what I'm going to say about Schwartzy. Schwartzy would have welcomed every question you have and would have invited you over for Shabbos dinner. You know? He used to sit on Sundays in tie-dye shirts. Biggest tie-dye t-shirt collection ever. He'd sit at a little table, Jewish astrology readings, free. People would come and spend time giving a Jewish astrology reading, which we've done. And I say, "You single?" Once a month I have Shabbat for single Jews at my house. Do you ever go to it?
Yeah.
I never went to it because you'd have strangers at the house. It was beautiful, I'm guessing. I never went. You didn't like it? Because of Olivia or him or what?
Oh, no. They were great.
Oh, there's just no good guys.
Right.
Well, they were all practiced for him. Okay. So, you did great. So it's not, but that's why. But as an event, it's a beautiful event because that's just who he was.
Well, he separated from Cunin.
No, he separated from
Chabad
with the Rebbe's permission.
I heard the story behind that was that they wanted
him. Let's leave. He separated from Chabad with the Rebbe's permission because of politics.
Right.
Okay. There's a lot of Chabad stuff that has some challenges. I have a friend who was offered. A Chabad rabbi showed up with $1 million in cash. So he wanted to buy his house, but he wanted my friend to carry the note. And first of all, that already sounds fishy, but what does a rabbi do with that kind of money in cash? That's not all of them at all. And especially not true with the older guys. Okay? People like Danny Yiftach and Moshe Brisky and Isaac Sapo. These are great men. These are great, terrific guys. Good rabbis, terrific guys. Okay? But it's been filled with a lot of guys who are the children of rabbis, don't know what the heck to do, so they go study here. Yes?
Is it?
Loudly.
Okay, so the question is, I heard, and I want to know what the origin is, that you can't be a rabbi until you're like 35 or 40 years old.
No, that's not what the statement is. The statement is you are not to study Kabbalah until you are 41, have 3 children, and know all of Tanakh and Talmud. Now, it doesn't make any sense intellectually, given that Isaac Luria, the greatest Kabbalist, I think he died at 37 or something like that. Okay. So what is it about? It is about the fact that there was this guy named Shabbatai Zvi, and he was very charismatic. He was bipolar. This is, I think, in the 1500s. I think it's in the late 1500s. And he ends up, he was a Sephardic Jew, very charismatic, teaches meditation, things like this. And then he says, it's because of me you're having this experience. So imagine I gave a meditation class, and you all had this great experience. And I said, you had that experience because of me. Okay? And that got passed because you then told your cousin, you told your son, who was down in Colombia, and he tells other people, if you do this meditation, you think of this rabbi, Shabbatai Zvi, it's going to be good things for you. And he gets to be very, very powerful. It's called the Messiah. So powerful that the Sultan calls him in. And it says, look, maybe you're the Messiah, maybe you're not. So I'm going to make you a deal. I'm going to put you in prison to think about it. You let me know if you're the Messiah or not. The Messiah will kill you. If you're not, you can go free if you want to become a Muslim. And he thinks about it, and he says, he converts to Islam. 2 million Ashkenazi Jews feel betrayed and leave Judaism entirely. This one man did more destruction, certainly for his time, even than Hitler did to the Jewish people. So the rabbis we're taught constantly in the Gemara, the Talmud, that we should create a fence around a Torah, like a pool fence, right? We put a fence here so no one accidentally falls in the pool. So we put a fence. Right? So they come up with that dictate. Is the idea that you're not supposed to study Jewish mysticism. But the reality is Jewish mysticism is interwoven and integrated to everything we do. Judaism is a mystical monism. It is not a monotheistic tradition. It's a mystical monism. So does that? Okay. So it's. All right, so I hope this. We got off the topic, but that's why you have reincarnation, and why you have different thoughts about it. Any other questions about death, dying, the afterlife? So look at it this way: 200 years, we'll be doing it again in the world to come. Yeah.
Just to add,
Loudly.
just to add for the thought, when you were talking about all of these things happening 200 years ago, later in December, we're going to celebrate Hanukkah. And what was it about Hanukkah? Who was it that were? Who were the Maccabees fighting?
And the solution.
Other Jews that were fighting to say that we are Greeks, and that they were assimilated. So this idea of just talking about we want to be like what you're saying in Germany 250 years ago, it's not new. Just like anything we're talking about in Judaism, all of these human experiences are not new.
And maybe this is a good way to end the evening because it's about this life at the end of the day. I've said for many, many, many years, and now I believe it's even truer than when I originally said it, that in my lifetime or my children's lifetime, that every American Jew is going to have to make a determination: do you believe you're an American who's Jewish or a Jew who's living in America? And whatever you think you are, you need to realize that the rest of America thinks you're a Jew outsider living in America. If you don't believe that, go look at Columbia University today. Go look at Harvard. Go look at how is it that all these people on October 8th of 2023 were so shocked. And now, let's just make peace. Just sing Kumbaya. Right? So it is about, but that doesn't have a level. The anti-Semite doesn't care if you wrap the filling every day or not, does it? Hamas didn't even care if you were Jewish.
There's so many Jewish people that don't even know that's happening. They don't even care.
Which is why I am up at 3 o'clock every morning.
Exactly.
Okay? Because I think every rabbi should be writing an email every week. And if every rabbi wrote one email a week, this is what's happened in Israel that's not being reported here, then I wouldn't feel compelled to have been doing it every day.
Thank you.
And Orlando can vouch. She and I are both exhausted. It's taking effect on the body.
One other thought, because we just finished Pesach. How many Jews left Egypt? Of all the Jews that left,
I know a lot of them stayed.
That's right.
Like
80% stayed.
That's unbelievable.
So when you think about just because that, were they Jews? Yes.
And they all died.
Yes. And then how many of the Jews that left? How many of the Jews that left and traveled with Moses
and
fetched
and died?
That we want meat.
And
we saw all the miracles, but yeah, we want meat.
And the earth swallowed them up.
We know how to fetch.
So we're amazing that we're standing.
So it's just having that perspective that we
are. It is the covenant, and we say Am Yisrael Chai. People of Israel live, but that doesn't mean every Jew. That means the people of Israel will always live as long as we're true to Judaism. And I said this recently, and I think it's one of those things that ended up being, things sometimes pop out of your mouth and you realize that's true. Judaism has a very long memory. Jews have a very short memory.
Yeah.
Very true.
And so, we pray for our ancestors to help us, and we go and we do all those things. So I hope this is valuable. I hope this was worthwhile. Take some cigars and
very, very much.
call it a night.